This is Adventures in Queer Filmmaking. Today, our special guest is Christie Conochalla. You might hear some barking throughout the podcast. That is my little production assistant, Sylvie. Christine is a writer-director from Los Angeles, California. She is passionate about storytelling and mainly telling widely relatable stories about women and lesbian in the lesbian community. Her dramatic short film, August in the City, has gained awards and acclaim from various contests and festivals. Her romantic comedy short, Once Upon a Zipper, has had a vibrant streaming life online. And her first feature film, Forever Not Maybe, is out for the world to see on Lesflix and other streaming services. So I hope you will partake and support queer content. Christine, why don't you come on camera today and we'll chat for a little bit.
Let's see. Am I on? Hello.
Yeah. There we go. Cool. It's I know personally it's just so hard to get a film made, but what was the first short that you did? What made you say, you know what, I don't want to just watch films, I want to make them? What was it?
Well, are we talking about the first short that I claim as my first short, or like the first one that's really embarrassing?
Yeah, really embarrassing that you had to beg, borrow, and steal to get made. That was one of those things that like friends and family had to donate. You had to live off of pizza. What was that first short film that made you catch the filmmaking bug?
Well, it was indeed Once Upon a Zipper. I lived in San Diego before I moved to LA, and had a nice little creative community group that I did little things with there. And I did an embarrassing short called Searching for Jenny Lewis, which was basically about this woman who's obsessed with the musical star Jenny Lewis and doesn't want anybody else because nobody's as good as Jenny Lewis. Here's an education on my musical taste. So Jenny Lewis actually was a child star here in Los Angeles. She was most famous for a film called Troop Beverly Hills. And if anybody has seen that movie, and she is also in a movie called Wizard, where they introduced Mario 3 for NES. She was very young.
I have a lot of nostalgia for both those films.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, True Beverly Hills is one of my favorite films, and like of all time. And so she kind of grew up and became a singer, and she was in a band in the early 2000s called Rilo Kiley, of whom I became quite obsessed with. And now she still is a musical artist touring, but she does all of her, she tours on her own right now. So I think she's opening for Harry Styles. I don't know who that is, but I feel like other people do. So the end of the movie is basically she meets Jenny Lewis. Jenny Lewis wasn't actually in the film, of course. And then Jenny Lewis herself is still not good enough because we build up these ideas of who strangers are, celebrities are in our head.
You can't meet your heroes, right? Sometimes that just ruins it.
I feel like Jenny Lewis, I have not met her, but I feel like she would be just as cool as she seems. But really it was a call to, how we have these lists of the people who we say we want to be with, and then when we have that definition in front of us, a lot of times our brains don't let us see that. So that was like this huge like meta story that I had made, which I do not have released. But
what was the budget for that, or was that a big
$0?
$0. I like it.
Was my friend James, who continues to this day to help me on all of my projects. He was the director of photography on the first episode of Welcome Home, the Christmas episode from 2020 that we that you can also see on Netflix right now. But that really, I've always wanted to write and direct, and that was kind of something that I had done to get my feet wet. And then after I did that, it was just a downward slope until I moved to LA, because I wanted to be in the society of people who were making things happen. And I had come up here because I had written a feature called What She Sees, which is something that I let go of a very long time ago. But on that journey, I had met people, I had met friends here in the community, and we wrote Once Upon a Zipper together. So when I moved here, I literally worked at a coffee shop down on Culver City. And if you know True Beverly Hills, I have to say right now that now that I'm an adult and I live in Los Angeles, like I totally get what the red feathers. I kind of think the red feathers were right in their opinions. But I worked at a little coffee shop in Culver City, and I met one of my very best friends, Casey, and she. I had a script for Once Upon a Zipper, and she came up to me and she just said, "Do you want to make the movie? What if I told you I would pay for this movie to be made?" So I
Once Upon a
started.
Zipper is very ambitious. There's a lot going on in it, a lot of callbacks to different popular queer films.
Yes, it was really incredibly ambitious for my very first, Casey paid for the whole thing, so I didn't have to worry about money, and I was very spoiled after that.
Do you want to share what the budget was for that to go from zero to what?
From zero to about $50,000.
50,000. And how many days of shooting were you allocated?
Oh my gosh, that was back in 2013. I think it was 5 days, maybe
Okay.
6, 5.
It gives people an idea of how much per day. All right, great.
Yeah, and we had, on that film, like my director of photography was a B camera guy for like Marvel movies, and so we had the crew that I had on that movie was just ridiculous. Aida, who was my line producer, she just came off of Euphoria, so I like that cast and crew was absolutely magical. You could probably see Stephanie Koenig, who plays the sister, has done a lot since then. She just produced a movie with her friend called Spy Movie, which looks hilarious. But anyway, the movie cost quite a bit of money, and Casey wanted to do it 100% right. She worked at Sony at the time, so she was really instrumental in getting me all of the things I needed to do that. And with that said, it being my first project with a full crew. I mean, we had about 30 or 40 people on that crew.
Wow.
And just did everything to the nines. And but I think what I learned from that is it was really ambitious. I put a lot of things into that. I think it was like a 30-page short film. Number one, it was way too
You've released two versions. There's one version, I guess, was the festival version, and then there's the director's cut. It's longer, right?
Yeah. So there's a 26. Well, it started out as 45 minutes. Like it was long, and we knew that we couldn't get anywhere with a 45-minute movie. So we had cut it down to the 26 minutes where you watch it, and it has this character in it called Frankie at the end, because it was in my imagination. As growing up and like watching Lost and Delirious, it was. I think we all share, like, Polly did not need to jump off that roof, right?
Well, all right, let's talk about Lost and Delirious just for a minute, because I think I remember seeing that movie before Piper Perabo was in Coyote Ugly, and so I was just like, oh, who is Piper Perabo? I'm on board. But to be fair, the movie has a dark ending because it's based off a dark book. So for people that wanted a happy ending, that was never going to come. That the ending didn't exist.
Well, the ending in the movie was quite a bit happier than the book. The book is so much darker. When I read the book, first of all, I love Lost and Delirious. It's very sad that she jumps off the roof, but I just feel like, when I made Once Upon a Zipper in 2013, we were just kind of beyond the lesbians dying thing. That Lost and Delirious was made in, I think, 1999 or 2000.
I remember seeing it at the Castro Theater at Frameline, and just seeing it with a bunch of people just being like, we were on board for that whole movie. And the end, we just all were left crying.
I think it's beautiful though, because she just, and if you read the book, the Polly character just had so many mental health issues that she couldn't deal with. And they really scaled it down in the movie. Actually, I'm just going to turn this because I'm losing light.
You want to show off the guitars. I get it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yes. When I was a teenager, I wanted to be a country music singer. So there are my guitars. So anyway, the movie is absolutely beautiful. But when I was making it, the idea behind Once Upon a Zipper, and when we had originally wrote it, and I had written it with a friend of mine named Jen McGlone, when we had originally written it, it was called The Lesbian Movie. We were going to make like a farcical spoof movie called The Lesbian Movie, because at the time all the movies coming out all had the same plot line, and they were all starring Piper Perabo. So all of the characters, if you notice, all of the characters in the movie are named after other characters from other movies, like Polly and Rachel, Imagine Me and You, Lost and Delirious, Nancy from Tipping the Velvet, Randy Rivers
there's some nice Easter eggs. Yeah, I think everyone who's seen those classic movies,
yes,
can follow along easily. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, we had decided to adjust the script from being a farce, because we realized that more people would appreciate it if, people who hadn't seen those movies, we wanted them to have an enjoyable experience too. So we scaled down the farce just a little bit, but I really wanted Polly to not jump off the roof. So I had written in the Frankie character you'll see in the extended cut, to be that person, and in the script it was Piper Perabo that was going to grab her. So we were actually really actively trying to get Piper in the project, but ultimately it was probably better because I was so green. I'm sure it would have been
busy woman, she had things to do. I get it.
She was doing covert affairs at the time. I don't know. She was busy.
She was great on covert affairs.
She's great in everything she does. She's great as herself on Instagram.
She's on that dancing show. What's it called? I'm blanking on what it is, but she's the character that has cancer that can dance, and you're like, it's Piper Perabo, and you just
I think pretty much any lesbian of a certain age probably has the same crush on Piper Perabo.
Yeah,
similar to Claire Duvall.
Yeah. Oh, love Claire Duvall. Yeah, talk about her all day for sure.
Oh my gosh, me too. But the idea was to have that character just like literally manhandle her and be like, you are not in the right movie, because it was like that line between Polly being in Lost and Delirious and her being in Imagine Me and You, where it was like, no, you're not going to jump off this roof. You are in the wrong.
With a hawk on her shoulder.
Yeah, with the hawk on her shoulder. You have to get PETA involved. Yeah. Like having an actual hawk was a little bit too complicated. So that's the main difference between the two. We had gotten that 26 minute short, which I had edited directly from what the script was. So when we were kind of putting it out to the festivals, as a lot of, filmmakers know, maybe not everybody, but to get your film in festivals, if you don't have like a Piper Perabo in your movie, it's really hard to get a 26-minute movie into a film festival, because their shorts programs are usually like an hour long. So it's like your 26-minute movie is going to take up almost half of their shorts program. So it better be like one of the best movies you've ever seen. So when we were kind of going through it, we had dipped our toes in the water a little bit to see what we could do with the 26-minute version, and we weren't getting a lot of approvals into the festival. So we cut it down to the 18-minute version. It just made sense to cut out that Frankie character because she wasn't in the entire thing. But yeah,
even still, the amount of time and the budget you put in, there's a certain level of quality to that short. So was there a festival that you got into that you had a great festival experience?
No, we had a terrible festival experience. We got into one film festival in London called the Let's All Be Free Film Festival, which is, the guys behind that festival are just such amazing human beings. And I went out there with Jillian Lee, who played Polly. And we had a great time, but the festival was very small in a tiny little room. My movie almost didn't play because they had me send my best version, and I sent them my it was 1080 at the time because it was 2014, but I sent them my best version with 5.1 audio. When I got to the theater, there were only 2 speakers. Ugh. And so I'm looking at the setup and I'm going, oh my gosh, this is going to be interesting. We'll see what happens. So lo and behold, when they push play on the thing, the 2 speakers only played the sound effects track and the music track. Wow. And so after about 3 minutes, I walked up to the festival director and I said, don't make them watch a 26-minute movie where they can't hear the dialogue. Because 5.1, for people who don't know, 5.1 audio, that's 5 speakers in a sub. So when you only have 2 speakers, it's choosing which tracks it wants to play when you're giving them a 5.1 mix out. That's not normalized so that it all goes.
Was that a little crushing since that was the one festival?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I handled it actually pretty well. I was really grateful to have Jillian there because she got angry for me. I was just like I was just standing there in a bit of shock because we had both flown to England specifically because this was the only festival I had gotten in. So I just walked out of the theater and just paced like, what can we do to get this movie playing? And ultimately, they were able to pull the 18-minute version off of Vimeo because I had a
Good.
screener on there. So we ended up closing the festival because it took them a really long time to figure out how to play it, and they were super sweet, bought all of our drinks for the whole night, and it was a really great. But I was just talking to Casey last night because on Netflix, Once Upon a Zipper is consistently on the top 5 most watched,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
great.
even get I get messages from YouTube all the time on YouTube of people like requesting I republished that video on my YouTube page. I always send them to Netflix. It's free on
Yeah.
Netflix.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just I was talking to Casey last night how funny it is how badly that did in festival. We just no matter what festival I put it in, it was just nobody wanted it. And so it just is like it goes to this larger conversation of what programmers are looking for versus what the community is looking for, because a lot of times now that I've been more in more in the community and participating with festivals. I was the guest festival director of the Art in Brooklyn Film Festival in 2021. That like now I understand the festivals kind of go in like themes, and they have all these criteria that all mix together to create their programs, and I can see why Once Upon a Zipper didn't really match with any of those, because I think it was at the time where that year it was like at Alfest there was like Summer of Sangal and Kismig, and there was a lot of and appropriate behavior. There were just a lot of Sapphic community films that were going in a less in the 90s early 2000s direction of
Mhm.
woman falls in love with straight woman kind of thing, and more in we are human beings and these are our stories. So in retrospect I understood it, but at the time it was just I was just torn apart. The fact that I was so proud of it and it just went nowhere.
Well, why don't you maybe tell people how long did post take? Because there's the life of a film. You said it. You had 5 days of production, but post
Yeah.
can take several months, and then
uh
you're trying the festival circuit, and that's
yeah.
maybe another couple months. So you live with the film sometimes for a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. Post, I can't remember exactly. It definitely took 6 months or more for
Mhm.
post. That is the only film that we had hired an editor, and he was really great. He rest his soul. He passed on a few years ago. But I mean, he did a phenomenal job. But when you are outsourcing everything on a very low budget, by that time, I mean, by 60 grand it seems like a lot of movie, or 50, whatever I said, whatever I think it was.
It goes fast.
It goes fast. It goes really fast. And so people are on their own pace, and we had to do ADR because we actually, in that closing scene, we actually were on a roof in downtown Los Angeles, and I didn't look at the calendar realizing it was Oscar night. So we were downtown Los Angeles on top of a roof. There were helicopters and police cars and all the things that are happening because of the Oscar parties and stuff that were happening all around us. And that whole scene had to be ADR. So then you have to work with the actors to try to get them in so that they can re-record the audio and they can match with the with the editor. So things like that do definitely take time. And then when I did the recut, that I had to send it back to the guy that edited our audio, and you have to wait for that for X amount of time. So by the time I think the London festival was in 2015. And I think I remember that because at the time I was already working on Forever Not Maybe, and I had Casey was a producer also of one of the executive producer of Forever Not Maybe. She didn't pay for Forever Not Maybe, but she did all the paperwork.
That helps out so much. I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of paperwork. One day I would love to get a producer that helps with that.
Yeah,
So good
and
on you that you had that.
Yeah, and Casey really, she just brought it. She didn't like doing it. She really likes. I mean, now she doesn't work for Sony anymore. She is an actor in her own right now, and doing doing music videos or whatever, all the things that actors do here
She's
in LA.
busy. She's doing stuff.
She's very busy, but she didn't like doing the paperwork. She just did it because she loves me. And
There you go.
but I
Good
do
friend.
remember we had finished Mandala's paperwork for Forever Not Maybe, and I found out at that festival that Mandala's visa had gotten approved and that we were clear to move forward for the feature. So it was interesting how that kind of how Once Upon a Zipper kind of bridged into Forever Not Maybe in that way.
Before we talk about Forever Not Maybe, I'm curious, when did August in the City happen in between those ones?
So August in the City, that was just a wonderful surprise. Mandala came to LA in December of 2015, and I had, I wasn't in contact with Louise very much about it. We were very slightly, but because Mandala was coming here, Louise who is the director of All About Eve, if anybody has seen Mandala's first feature film, All About Eve.
Great movie. It's available on Tubi TV. Everyone should check it out.
Yeah, I think it's on Hulu too.
It's all over. People,
yeah, it's all over.
It's not to see it.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal film, and I mean, you watch that film, and I just thank Louise all the time for seeing that in Mandala and giving her the opportunity to be in her first feature for that film. But Louise had organized a screening of All About Eve in New York when Mandala was coming here. And at that screening, Mandala and I both met Lisa Tedesco, who at the time she was working with Curve magazine. She was writing reviews and just generally doing what I don't actually really know.
Busy woman that her film is doing great things at festivals. Another busy woman.
Lisa is so busy. Yeah. She's so talented. So Mandala and I both met her in person in December, when Mandala first got here, December of 2015. And from that meeting, Lisa wanted to do August in the City. It was going to be her first project ever. And she had written it based on a story that her mom had written. So it was really something that was special to her heart. And she had hired me with the intention of co-directing, actually. And it was her first project she had ever produced. So she got so busy producing that unfortunately she didn't have the time to sit back and direct. And I feel really bad, but at the same time, like I love that movie and that experience so much because Lisa literally just gave me everything that I needed to like the nth degree.
It's a beautiful film. Having worked with Mandala on that, and then your feature, I mean, do you see her as and then on some of your other shorts, is she somewhat of a muse? I feel like you're inspired by her to keep putting her in different projects.
Well, yes. I mean, I don't know if muse is the right choice of words. She's just like one of the most insanely talented actors ever, in my opinion.
Well, no, if a director likes working with an actor, they tend to reuse them and find more creative ways to let them tell new stories with different characters.
Yeah.
I think she's definitely proving that for you.
Oh, absolutely. And really, like, I love bringing Mandala in because she's just an asset on any set. And she's a joy to work with. And she just makes everything better, from the project itself to the life that that we're all living on set. And I mean, any filmmaker out there who has something, you want Mandala in your project because your production value is just going to go through the roof because of her talent. And but yeah, so Lisa, that was actually, we shot August in the City in 2016 after we had shot a proof of concept in December of 2015 for Forever Not Maybe. So we had shot that, and then I think it was spring. I don't remember what month it was in New York, but very soon after we shot that proof of concept for Forever Not Maybe, Lisa flew Mandala and I out to Brooklyn where we shot August in the City. And I can't leave the conversation of August in the City because it's no secret that I'm a huge fan of Mandala and Mandala's work. But the person who gets so little recognition in that movie, maybe because, everybody knows Mandala because all the community films and stuff she's in, but Daniela Mastro Pietro, the woman who plays August, I'm writing movies for her to be in every day. It was just such a magical experience to work with her, and the talent. She comes from a primarily theater background, and I had never worked with an actor that had so much training before. And Mandala's very all of her, she's very instinctual. And when she's acting, so Mandala's instincts with Daniela's training, those two things together were just the most magical experience I have ever had.
That to play off of, and that
and they literally had a half a day to fall in love. We got there, and then they met the day before we started shooting that scene in the scene in the Brooklyn apartment. Where they
Do you have any tips for directors working with actors for the first time or trying to capture that chemistry? Anything? It's a tough order to capture that. That's what
it's tough. For. I mean, you have to really go in there. I was really lucky. I always feel like as a director, don't do anything. I don't think that's true. If
you have good actors, the actors do all the heavy lifting. That's true.
They do, but yeah. I mean, it was really interesting because we obviously had the script in front of us, and the day before we had done blocking in that apartment because that scene in the bedroom is the most important scene of the whole script, obviously. So based on obviously the blocking that's in the script versus what we could do at the apartment was quite a bit different. And there were things in the script that just wasn't going to work with the way that they had to move in order to get in and out, because there was that sliding door and the bed was in a certain place and the window was behind the bed. So we had to kind of feel it out for ourselves. And I think the advice that I give directors, and I mean, it's hard to give advice because this is what I do is I'm a really collaborative director. I want to know.
Being open to that makes the project better.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. But there are directors who are for instance, I don't want to say his name, a certain director that has been Me Too'd, Woody Allen, where he just this is my script, these are the words, this is exactly how I want it, you only do it how I want it. And there are some directors that are like that. That's fair enough, because if you have that vision in your head that's just a totally different thing. But I just gained so much for myself as a director, just trying to understand where the actors are coming from. And so when we were blocking through that scene, we were all kind of putting our heads together on how to make it more powerful. And actually there's, I don't know if anybody hasn't seen it, I'm sorry, I'm going to blow it.
It's been around a while. It's okay. They can
it's been out for a couple years. So,
yeah.
So there's, I won't tell the huge secret in it, but after they realize they're not going to be together, and August kind of, Clementine goes to the window, Mandala's character goes to the window and reacts at the window, and then August goes to exit the room, and Daniela was just she didn't, in the script she didn't say anything, and Daniela was just kind of what if I stopped and turned around and said I love you too? And every time I watch that is the thing that just breaks my heart every single time. And just such a simple but brilliant idea, because she never returned. Clementine had said it, and then that led to the further conversation. But for her to come full circle and say, I love you too, knowing that the whole situation was hopeless, and then and the way that Danielle just played that was just the most heartbreaking and an amazing experience I have ever had on set.
But and there you go, being open to that happy accident.
Yeah.
Being open to that.
Yeah. And actually the necklace also wasn't in the script. When we were just kind of, when August was walking up those steps to enter the building, we were she needs something. And I think the necklace was something that Daniela had just had on her. So we had added that kind of last minute too. And it became the thing of the script. So yeah.
Oh, that's great. Happy accidents, being open to that collaboration. Do you feel, have you been able to have that kind of collaboration with your DP for some of your projects, or has it been?
Oh yeah. I mean, I've been so spoiled with my DPs. So it was like, as I said, Garrett Benson on Once Upon a Zipper, who was like an industry DP, and I mean, his whole family are just iconic in town here. Have done amazing things in photography. And then on August in the City, we had a DP named Maria Roosh, she's done so many. She just did, she's doing really well with Shiva Baby right now. She did
Oh,
that.
the film is amazing.
It's an amazing film. And I am just so grateful to have gotten to work with her, because she was just, she was just on my side. The collaboration of it was incredible. She like, I would express something and she knew what I wanted immediately and did. And really that movie was like, all of my dreams came true in August in the City, as far as
That's
working
great.
with the DP. It was amazing. And then on Forever Not Maybe, I don't know how I have gotten so fortunate. Alicia Robbins was my DP on Forever Not Maybe. I had actually worked with her. We both worked in like corporate type work together. She was a camera operator at the time, and now she's like the DP for Grey's Anatomy. Like, she's done
awesome.
such amazing things, and Alicia was just so kind and collaborative and giving, and we had no money for Forever Not Maybe. Like, I had less money for Forever Not Maybe than I had, I think, for August in the City.
Well, let's talk about that. So with your DP, like there are a lot of exteriors in that movie. Was it working with natural light during a specific time of day, limited setups? Would you like to talk about it?
Excuse the photo bomb. Well, no, we actually were really efficiently shooting on that film. We knew that we didn't have a lot of time, so we did a lot of moving masters which was really difficult for us to cut, but it saved us a lot of time. We used a lot of natural light, when we were outside, but the space that was supposed to be the music venue, where you see the piano and where they meet, that was a space that we had found downtown, and we were there for a couple days, so we were able to pre-light and take our time there.
That must have saved you so much time, though, being able to have that.
Yeah, we were really lucky to find that space. It was really well priced. It wasn't necessarily the space that I had imagined for Sasha. We had to explain it, and because it was so small, we had to explain it in a lot of ways. And I was really grateful. I worked in a really big stage at that time, and they allowed us to go in for a day to film. Like, when they first meet and they go into that gear room where they kiss for the first time, like, all of that space was a place where I used to work a lot, an actual production space. So we were really fortunate that people were so supportive of me and moving forward with this film. And all of my friends and everybody involved all are in production. So we already have worked really well together, and I think that was a testament to the time that it took. But Alicia herself, I mean, her and her husband are just incredible talents. Her husband, David, is also a DP, and he like creates like robots and things that holds cameras. And so they really, like, when I needed things, they were donating their time, they were donating their gear.
That's amazing.
We had a jib in my apartment when we were, that the shots going up and down these stairs. So, I mean, it was just one of those really, really, I'm so grateful for the symbiotic relationship that I had with Alicia and the people around her, because she really hired her whole camera team that she trusted and that she worked with a lot. So I will always be so grateful, and I'm such a fan of her work and how Forever Not Maybe looks, and just all the things that she did to make it such a special project.
Well, there you go. It comes back to relationships, collaborating, and sometimes you got to call the favors, and it's about people love the work and want to help out. So it pays to be a good person. It pays to be like, yeah, people like me. I'm doing okay. I'm on the right path.
It does. It absolutely does. And when you're a filmmaker, like, you really have to be a good person, because it is such a collaborative effort. It just doesn't help anyone to be a jerk. And I have my moments, you know, when you get frustrated, you have your moments.
Everyone does. It's understandable, especially when you feel like, you know, like you said, budget issues, feel like the weight on your shoulders.
I had no above the line help.
There you go.
It was me like ordering craft services like while I was trying to direct. And
I know what that's like. That's the worst thing. Last thing you want to worry about is what people are having for lunch, you know?
Yeah. While you're like directing a scene where people are breaking up, you know?
Well, so what was the crew size to go from 30 on Once Upon a Zipper to Forever Not Maybe? How many people were actually on set maybe each day?
I think like 15.
Okay.
Yeah,
you had a couple PAs, you still had a few people, right?
Yeah, and I don't think nobody worked for free. All of my budget for that movie went to to giving people. They didn't get industry standards, but we negotiated for them to have an amount of pay that they didn't find offensive, which is really important, because if you
this is my PA, she works for hot dogs. She's been paid in hot dogs before, and she keeps coming back to work with me, so I'm lucky.
I bet she's great. But it's really important to really be honest with the people who you're working with about the amount of money that you have and the amount of money you can pay, and working with them to negotiate something that will not make them angry when they're on set. It's also really important. I think one of the big reasons why people were working with me is, I work in production too. In my regular life, I work in TV. I do lighting. And so my general day was that, I have a 10-hour minimum for most of my freelance gigs. So even myself, I'm just so bad. I don't want to work more than 10 hours, even when it's my own movie. I want to go to bed. I want to go home and go to bed and wake up fresh and be able to have that collaboration. So I was really good about, making sure we're wheels out at the 12-hour mark, if not before. And then I fed them really well and treated them, and tried to treat them like understanding that I was paying them probably half of what they normally get. So people will work with you if you treat them well. But if you start abusing them, if you're doing like 16-hour days with no turnaround and feeding them sandwiches and pizza, like they're going to get grumpy, and you have to make sure, like, if just think about it from like your perspective as a human being, would you want to go on like a 17-hour day where you have no breaks and one meal, and your one meal is like a slice of Domino's pizza? Like, you just have to think
after 16 hours, it really does get dangerous. It's really no one's productive, and you're just walking zombies at that point. And
exactly. So it's just not being one of those independent filmmakers. I think it's really important to me, even though I have to sometimes I will sacrifice the shot for the people, and I need to kind of figure out how to balance that a little bit better, because I when I watch it, I'm like, oh, if we had just taken 15 more minutes. But I think that's a testament to when you're the producer and the director. Yep. Like on August in the City, I was like, we're doing this is what we're doing, and I wasn't compromising. But on Forever Not Maybe, I compromised more than I should have. Let's
talk about the gaps in between. Did it give you time to reassess how the film was going, and if you needed to pivot for certain things, because you had kind of breaks in between the production?
For Forever Not Maybe, yeah, it did actually, because it started as a web series. I didn't think I was going to be able to make any money to do the project, so we had done that proof of concept in December of 2015 that I made into like a teaser for Indiegogo, and then I was shocked with very little, because of Mandala, and because of, my friend Jessica, who was my co-producer. I say that I did it all myself, but no, I didn't. She was definitely picking up what I couldn't do. But we got enough money to shoot, like, based on the budget that we had broken down, which I think was like $3,000 a day, that was like minimum. That's what we could do with the minimum amount of people. And the budget we ended up getting, we realized that we could shoot for like 4 days. And so in cahoots with Alicia, my DP, it went from a web series to being a feature film. And because Alicia was like, you're going to do, like, it's going to get you further if you make this into a feature film, and just get that on your resume so that you can move forward from, this is just like, rip that Band-Aid off and make this a feature.
Well, did you have another script that you were holding
No.
to be like, this is going to be my first feature film?
Did I have a script that was going to be my first feature film?
Yeah, that was the bigger project that.
No, at the time I was so disorganized. I just wanted to make Sapphic content. That's all I wanted. And I was really interested in web series because I had just learned about them. This is 2015, and I had gone to Outfest that year, and they had a panel of web series content creators, and Tina Cisa Ward, who did Anyone But Me and a bunch of other amazing shorts and web series. She was on the panel and kind of going through what she went through creating it, and so I had a really big interest in the whole platform and the whole medium because it was so new.
Do you have a favorite web series that you were like, oh, maybe they made it look easy, I'm gonna just try and make it?
At the time it was Anyone But Me. Okay. And then when I met Mandala, I watched all of her work. And she's in a web series, which is it's not a Sapphic web series, but it's one of the best web series I've ever seen. And I'm so sad that that the filmmaker never got money to do it. It's called Wastelander Panda.
That's a great title. Oh my God, I need to look that up.
It's like a dystopian that she made it when she was in Australia. And it's like this dystopian story that stars a panda. And it's a person in a panda.
You don't need to oversell.
It's a person in a panda costume, but it's like at the first 5 seconds you watch it, you're like, oh, okay. The main character, and it's serious. The main character is a panda, and you just accept it because it's so good. So everybody watching this, go to YouTube and watch Wastelander Panda, and like contact that filmmaker and convince them they need to do another season.
Did you ever watch the web series for Girl Trash before the movie?
Yes, I did.
It was such a great, gritty web series. It's so different from the movie we got. I'm just so thankful for Angela Robinson because, when South of Nowhere, I was the demographic when that came out. And so it was so frustrating being like a young lesbian and having this story about these young lesbians where they they couldn't sit on the bed at the same time. They couldn't show, they had so many rules about the lesbians. Meanwhile, like the guy and the girlfriend, the cheerleaders, like the guy's getting a blowjob in the bathroom stall, but like the lesbians couldn't sit on the bed together. It's like absolutely nuts. So how grateful are we that Angela Robinson was like, this is BS. I'm making a web series. I'm gonna hire these actors, and we're gonna give you the project that you deserve to have with these two actors. It's great, and I love the movie too. Actually, I love both of them. The movie has its place, but since her wife directed it, it's a different, it's from a different point of view. So, well, let's talk about Lesflix. Do you have a favorite short or movie on there that you want to give a little shout out to?
Nightcap.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Nightcap will be on there, right? February 4th.
When I first watched, I'm not a horror fan at all. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, it's a horror and there's blood. And then I watched it again and I was like, wait a minute. This is this is a really intelligently stylized, like lesbian, perfect Sapphic horror.
Well, we have a wonderful trans actor in it as well. Jiz Lee was generous enough to be in it for
wonderful.
I had met them at a lighting workshop in San Francisco, and I had just kind of after meeting them, I was like, oh my God, they would make a great vampire. And I reached out and I was like, would you like to be a vampire in this short film? Will only take up half a night to do it. Shot it in 6 hours. I had storyboarded everything.
Where did you film that?
The locations in San Francisco on Airbnb. I really literally looked up vampire apartments and it came up. It is a perfect vampire apartment. It's beautiful. I want to get back in there to do some more shorts, possibly a feature, but that was a really fun project. And those actors coming together, working for a reduced rate, Very small crew. Like, you would probably be like, we only usually have a handful of people. If you watch the credits, the dog is part of the crew. The dog came with one of our actors. Timmy was wonderful. He looks like that little bat, little fat bat. But yeah, and I kept I recently, it's still making the festival rounds. Every now and then I get a call from a festival wanting to screen it, and just recently I got a screener fee where I was like, oh my god, you're going to pay me money to show it? I would just show it for fun because it's a fun little short. But it's definitely nice that it's still getting out there. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, it's just, we don't have enough in the community of things like that, where I know we had talked and you had said Dario Argento is an inspiration of yours, and it was that house that made me think of Dario Argento, just like
I couldn't address that house any better. That house just had to exist in the world for me to take advantage of it. Yeah.
And the candlesticks in the bedroom, and it was just every step of it was just so spot on to independent horror films. It really was. I'm such a fan of it.
I appreciate it. If you like that one, you might like Blood Bond. That one's on PJs and Pixels right now, and it's also making its festival round. More queer vampire fun, more blood.
Oh.
That one we made for much smaller budget, much smaller crew. We had more vampires on set than crew. Still had a little dog, but that one was commissioned by BJ's and Pixels for $500. Me and a few other filmmakers were given a little bit of money, and they're like, write something short that you could film during the pandemic, and we came back with Blood Bond. And it's I have a soft spot for horror, so whenever if I can inject some LGBT characters in a horror storyline, I definitely will. So
do you have interest in making a horror feature?
Oh yeah, definitely want to make a feature version of Nightcap. I'm working at the loose version of that would be something similar to like
What We Do in the Shadows?
Yeah, something similar like that, but with more women or queer vampires. Like San Francisco has a very rich history, especially going back to the gold rush. And I was doing some research the other day on just characters, people that existed in that time, especially women. How could they get by, on just their on certain means? And there's this great story around Madame Mustache, and she was a card shark, and she got the name because she had a very faint mustache, and she would steal people's money, and a guy had stolen all her money, and she tracked him down and killed him, and she got away with murder. Kind of a dark end. And I encourage people to look up the real Madame Mustache and learn the story. But it made me think of like, a vampire could, making her way during the gold rush era, and what would that look like, and what would she have to do, and bringing different women vampires into the fold. So
yes, please. Yeah. I can't wait.
Well, we'll see. But let's get it back to you and Forever Not Maybe, in terms of just it's a great learning experience to do a feature. Yeah. I just finished my first feature, and I'm exhausted, and
congratulations.
But we're talking about your feature right now. So maybe any advice for looking back on the experience? Would you have done anything differently?
Yeah, I would have spent more time with the script. So I was in such a rush to do it, and the transition from web series to feature, you can still kind of tell it instead of it being one big cohesive feature, it's more like vignettes of their relationship. And that really calls to the fact that it started as a series, and we tried to just like create transitions in order to make it make sense as a feature. But we felt like we were battling against time, because Mandala was on a visa, and we had to shoot it within a certain amount of time. And, there was so much going on that just made me feel like I had less time than I actually did have. I would have
talking a little bit about the process of working with, did you have to work with SAG because of Mandala?
No, Mandala. No? I don't know if she's in the union now, but definitely at the time she was not in the union, because she was in Australia. They don't have the same kind of infrastructure, I think, as we do here with our actors unions. Okay. So I got really lucky with that, because I didn't have to. And I on Once Upon a Zipper, that was all SAG. But like I said, Casey did all that.
You had another producer dealing with it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the takeaway, get a producer to deal with the paperwork. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And also the hardest thing is the fact that, here in LA, I've been a part of the Alliance of Women Directors and Women in Film, and
let's talk about Alliance Women Directors. I'm recently a part of that. I've submitted a short film to get reviewed for some feedback.
Work in progress.
Yeah, it's Queer Science. It's a short lesbian sci-fi film. But it's I'd love to know your experience with
oh my gosh. I mean, a couple of years ago, I can't remember what year I officially started participating with them. But I think the thing about being a writer director, and in Los Angeles in particular, it's actually, I mean, obviously it's very hard to get things done. But I feel like it's a little bit harder here in LA because of the fact that this is what we all do for a career. Like if someone were to call me on the phone, we're like, I have a really great project that you might see some famous people, but you're going to work for 17 hours for $100. I'd be like, no. No, because at my real job, I make a real amount of money to pay my bills, and I just don't have, I don't have the time or desire to be abused for nothing.
You know how hard that is to give up that time.
Yeah.
Although there's probably a little part of me that'd be like, who's going to be on set? I might be curious who would be on set.
Yeah, I mean, I worked at award shows and I've been around a lot of celebrities, so that doesn't, even when I go to the record store or whatever, they're there. You don't notice them because in real life they just look like people. But so I don't necessarily, I mean, if I met Clea, I think I'd be a total nerd because there are certain people who I would react in an embarrassing way toward celebrities. But I don't have the same experience as other people do with them, just because they're in LA, they're pretty much everywhere. But I just think that it's hard to ask, professional crew people to help you out for nothing, because they do other things, and if they're slow, then maybe they'll help you out, but it's really hard to get that kind of community around you, as maybe in other places where this is not what people do for a living.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's fair advice to tell people, like, you want to respect people's time and the value they're bringing to a project. Maybe talk a little bit about your web series, Welcome Home, because you're working with friends. You're doing this content fairly quickly, and what's your plans for it?
Well, that's so Welcome Home came out of, December, picture it, December 2020. I had just gotten dumped out of from my girlfriend at the time, just before Thanksgiving in 2020. Amongst everything else that we were
hard time to be dumped.
It was, but it was COVID that really did us in. I mean, not like it was the COVID time. So I think a lot of people really had a hard time in a lot of ways. And so I had just gotten dumped in November. And then in December, when I realized for the first time in my entire life, I was not going home for the holidays, I just got so depressed. And so I was just like, I have to do something. And I wrote this little, 5-page Christmas thing, and got my buddy James, who worked on Searching for Jenny Lewis. And he also worked on, he worked on Forever Not Maybe. He's a touring lighting director. He does what Sasha did in the movie. So he came up with his drone and like a light that he had borrowed from one of the places that he worked, that was kind of broken, and microphones that didn't work that well because I had $0. So he came up and I abused him for a full day. I think we only shot for like 4 or 5 hours because it was very short. And we had such a nice time. I hired Marie Gibol, who is one of the main characters in Forever Not Maybe. I'm so in love with Marie. I love her so much. She's so talented. And I didn't realize when I had asked her to help me out, because I was just like, can you please help me out? And then literally like Sarah's a part of it, because I was going down my contact list and she was the only actor who was willing to go out during COVID and available on the day that we were shooting. So that's how Sarah got the role. I hadn't even seen her act before. And when I was like, I didn't know how she was going to be with Marie. And it was just like such a leap of faith. But at the same time, like I had no expectations for it, because I was literally doing it just because I was so depressed. And Naomi at Lesflix, you know, she's so sweet. She was like, you know, I told her I was like, I might have like a lesbian Christmas thing. If you have, she waited up for me on Christmas Eve until like 4 a.m. waiting for the project, because we had shot it on the 21st. And then I had it ready on the 25th. It was, you know, Marie came, it was a lot of fun, because we shot it, the house was one of my very best friend's house, Cindy, who lives down the street, with the red door. And we just had a really nice time, like playing around with no expectations. And I was like, well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you know? And then when I finished it, and there's a lot of problems, like the audio, I should not be in charge of audio, because
audio is its whole thing. Like, it's really great if you can have someone responsible specifically for audio. If you're already producing, directing, and you've written it, you shouldn't have to do audio also.
No, you shouldn't. But we had $0, and we didn't have an audio recorder, so we used GarageBand, which effectively we did about 20 takes altogether of the whole thing. And we had, I think we had 7. Somehow all of the audio got deleted, and then I had 7 takes to pull the audio from, and of those 7 takes, a couple of them had the drone in it, so they were unusable. And basically when you're watching that movie, none of what they're saying is native to the shot that it was. I had to like piece that together. I had to sew it together like a quilt. So there were a lot of problems with it, but I just watched it earlier, and I just think it's like, there's no lesbian Christmas film, maybe Holiday Help Desk, which you can also see on Lesflix from Hilary Esquina. I don't think I can think of another Christmas film that I just get those same Christmas warm fuzzies that I do from Welcome Home. And then after that, I was just like, let's do a couple more. Like, what can we do? And at the time, COVID was pretty crazy. And my friend with the house, she didn't want us inside, because obviously they're a bunch of strangers. So I was like, okay, well, what can I film in her backyard? So we came up with the camping episode, which ended up really funny. And we've just like consistently had so much fun on set that it's such an easy thing to do. But I haven't had a crew. James was there. James did the first episode. And then my friend Evan, he helped me with the opening sequence with the U-Haul truck, and I'm so grateful, because he's like 7 feet tall, and it made the camera work when Marie was in the truck a lot easier. But all the rest, and the erotica, Leah Reads Erotica, which is being dropped on Lesflix, exclusively on Lesflix.
Is that for Valentine's? We're gonna get some erotica for Valentine's?
Well, that wasn't the original plan. It was going to be a New Year's, but then when I was organizing things, the episode was going to drop just before Christmas. And I was like, oh no, Naomi, we got to wait. I have to do another Christmas episode. I can't just bypass Christmas. So we put the hold on the erotica episode, shot a totally different episode for Christmas, which dropped, which is already exclusively on Lesflix. And then Leah Reads Erotica is coming out on February 12th. That'll be the 7th episode. And that was really fun. I was on Twitter. I made a Welcome Home Twitter profile, and I was literally tweeting as the characters. And I'm single, and I'm like sitting on my couch, like having fictional conversation, like relationship conversations with people. It was really weird. I was trying to gain an audience, and I was kind of looking through, and I realized how much the lesbian fiction audience is really wanting projects that are more resembling the books that they read. So I was trying to think of episodes, and a lot of the episodes for Welcome Home are inspired by episodes of I Love Lucy. So I really
Nice.
wanted to do a call to, there's an episode of I Love Lucy where Lucy is reading a murder book, and she's convinced that Ricky is trying to kill her. And so I wanted to do something along that kind of genre. And I was like, oh my gosh, it would be so funny if Leah, Sarah's character, was like sneaking reading erotica while Stacy was at work. And then Stacy comes home and like catches her, and like all the physical comedy that would go with like Leah trying to hide because she's embarrassed. And I was kind of researching erotica, and I had read TJ Dallas, which is a
I
writer.
mean, she could have been reading fan fiction, equally embarrassing, but a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, she could have been, but lesbians love erotica. They do. They love reading erotica. And so I went with TJ Dallas's book called The Bartender's Bride. And that book is like, I have it when I'm going to do a crowdfunding campaign to do more episodes of Welcome Home, because I want like an actual camera. I'm the camera operator, I'm the lighting person, I'm the audio person. I worked with TJ Dallas and her book, The Bartender's Bride. I highly recommend it. It like literally embarrassed Sarah while she was, because I had her reading dialogue in the book, and she was just turning bright red because it's so steamy. So I highly recommend that. But aside from, my friend Alicia Barnett, who is an incredible writer in her own right, and she was one of the co-creators of a web series that I'm trying to get them to release to Lesflix called Last Life.
Give your plea right now.
Yeah, it's my fault because I keep saying that I've mentioned it to her and Kathy several times, but I haven't dogged them like I should. She was the co-creator, co-writer of this Sapphic sci-fi web series from a couple years ago called Last Life. As it's heavily surrounded by like not parallel universe, but past lives and love in the past life. And there's a lot of like CW kind of like magic. It was really interesting helping them on set, because I've never done that kind of like magical stuff before. And it was like, it's just actors and the directing is Kathy saying, and you're going to cast this way, and you're going to cast that way, and you're going to look, and it's going to come out and I was just like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever been a part of. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you guys. So Alicia, she filmed the erotica episode, and also we shot a 15-page episode that day. That's hilarious, that I'm not saying anything about. I haven't edited it yet, but I'm going to. But
what is your hope for the do you want it to be an official series, or are you happy still doing like they're like mini shorts where you keep getting to revisit the characters?
I want it to be a full sitcom. I want it to be a 22-minute sitcom with commercial breaks on a place that has that capacity, because it just is ridiculous to me that we don't have any representation really in sitcom. And I say that How I Met Your Father just started a couple weeks ago.
Do you have an opinion you want to share on it? I've watched the first 2 episodes.
I think that I think it's a great start. I think that they're starting. I felt the same way about the beginning of the original that I did about this. I feel like they have some big shoes to fill. However, I put my full faith in the showrunners, and I can't remember the guy's name, I'm sorry, but Elizabeth Berger and her writing partner, they were the showrunners of This Is Us. And they also were the writers and the producers for the screenplay of Love, Simon. So I put my full faith in, and also executive producer was Pam Fryman, who is just an iconic, prolific executive producer and television director. She did the original How I Met Your Mother. She's done Frasier. She's done Friends. She's done everything. She did Abby's, which was Abby is a sitcom that the main character was bisexual, and then there was a lesbian character also in that. It didn't last very long.
Like, I'm happy we have a lesbian sister character. I just feel like it's a little forced right now, so I want to see how they develop it. If we can move into it some more with some more storylines.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think they're trying to really establish the Hilary Duff character, because she's kind of the Ted.
She's the star. We get it.
Yeah, she's the star. She's Hilary Duff. I grew up with her. I'm really impressed with
that lesbian sister. Will just hop in episodes here and there on a date.
I think she will, because Robin wasn't really a huge part of it at the beginning. She was kind of a stereotype herself. I love
Robin. And then her on that what was that detective show she was on where she's like a bisexual?
Oh,
author?
right. Oh, what was
Uh,
that show called?
yeah. It's terrible. I don't remember it. It's only got one season. It was so
Yeah,
good.
and I only watched a couple episodes because it was on one. It was like they were releasing one at a time, and and like when it does that, we're so spoiled with the whole binging thing.
Mhm.
But I think it's a really great start, and I am like giddy because I just literally for like 5 or 6 years I only watched How I Met Your Mother.
Well,
Like
are you watching any other queer shows that you want to give a shout out to?
the
Yellow
4400.
Jackets is pretty amazing if you've been watching that.
I haven't started Yellow Jacket. I've been told that I need to do that. COVID has made me a little bit of a wuss when it comes to shows. Like I'm literally
Want to see
watching
happy stuff?
I'm watching The Golden Girls again and stuff like that. But the 4400, which was a CW show,
that was a great show.
Wilder Ari, who plays the girlfriend of the main character, the main cop character.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
So they were in House of Lorraine, which was the short that I had produced for Lisa Tedesco. That unfortunately that short got COVIDed.
I was going to ask, is that short going to make its way to Lesflix, or is it still on the festival circuit?
I hope so. It's kind of trailing on the festival circuit. Unfortunately, Lisa had done everything that she should do as far as the festivals with that, but all the festivals were canceled.
Yeah.
Because that one, we shot it in 2000. I think we shot it at December of 2018. And yeah, I think it was December December 2018. And then she had put it in the festival, tried to submit it to festivals in 2019. And then unfortunately in 2020 is when it was supposed to have its run. And it did a bunch of digital festivals, and it did really well in the ones that existed, the ones that still went. But unfortunately, that short just kind of got pushed aside. And then
I'm looking forward to seeing her short spin whenever she makes that available.
You should be looking, and everybody should be looking forward to that. It is just such an incredible project. I am so proud of Lisa. She has come so far since August in the City. On August in the City, she had so many questions, and to go from where she was at August in the City to where she went with Spin, I think it's going to overtake Once Upon a Zipper. I really do. And I can't wait. That one is still going on the festival circuit. She's waiting to hear back from the Cannes Short Film Corner. So I know Lisa loves the whole festival. She loves festivals. She loves going. She loves being a part of it. So she's gonna wait until that one runs its course in the festival before she releases it. But anyone who has a chance to see it needs to go see it.
Before I forget, I did want to ask, with Forever Not Maybe, did you try and approach distributors originally before self-distributing?
No.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. So, Forever Not Maybe it started like, oh, I want to make something because obviously I'm not going to have an angel donor again, like I did on Once Upon a Zipper. And it was at a time when crowdfunding was, it was kind of in its heyday. It was not just starting, but it was just like, it was like that part after crowdfunding just started where then it became really big and really popular, and the thing that it transformed to the thing that we do. So I really wanted to, it was like an investigation of how much power I had with Once Upon a Zipper and everything that it did. Cause it didn't do well in festival at all. But when I initially released it onto my personal YouTube page, and I went from having like 2 followers to having like 6,000 or 7,000 subscribers because of Once Upon a Zipper. And I think it only took a couple months before it hit the 1 or 2 million mark. So it was very popular once I dropped it on the internet, because that's where the audience is, and that's what it was meant for.
Maybe for other filmmakers who are, they maybe had to scrimp and save and pull something together to make their first feature. Do you have any feedback on how your film is done on Lesflix that you want to share in terms of finding an audience or getting great feedback?
Absolutely. So when we finished it, I didn't really know what to do with it. And I went to a bunch of classes from distributors, from aggregators, I went to one with Emily Best from Seed and Spark. So there's a lot of different a lot of different directions that you can go with distribution. And people kind of think that you need someone to pick it up and, to have this whole big fancy thing, but you don't. And right now we're in a time where I think a lot of people are realizing, and the data is there, that when you give your stuff to a distributor, now it depends what your goals are. If you're a producer, I had a coffee with a producer who had a feature in Tribeca, and she, I was having the distribution conversation with her because I was preparing to figure out what I wanted to do with Forever Not Maybe, and hers, all her investors wanted for her movie was Samuel Goldwyn distribution. So that was the end of the line for her. She didn't care how much money it made. She just needed that name on her distribution. So that was like the path that she had gone. And I was very jealous because I'm like, oh, that must be interesting, where you're not like working toward making money on anything. You're just trying to do this one thing. But if you really look at it, when the distribution companies that approach films like Forever Not Maybe, you don't get a lot of return on that. They take the rights of your movie, and yeah, they'll put it in a bunch of places, yada yada yada. You'll be able to see your movie on, probably not Netflix. So I couldn't get Forever Not Maybe on Netflix because we started in 2015, and we shot it in 1080 because at the time there wasn't really 4K yet. And now Netflix, you have it, like the technical specs of Netflix are very particular. Like their quality,
the standards are changing. They want
yeah,
4K.
their standards are changing.
Yeah.
So you give it to a official like distribution company and if your idea is that you're going to be making money off of it, you're just not going to be making a lot of money off of it, because the distribution is in such a weird place before, because the distribution companies used to pick it up to take it to movie theaters, and that's where they would make their money. But now that's not really a thing anymore. Everybody's watching their stuff on streaming, so they can drop it on Hulu, they can drop it on whatever. You're not going to necessarily get a huge return on that, because the company's going to take their cut or whatever your contract is. But nobody I know that is with a distribution company is really seeing anything that's terribly helpful for them, except for when they go on AVOD, on advertisement based spaces, but they have to be big advertisement based spaces.
Well, like Tubi and Pluto TV, those are AVOD.
Yeah,
streamers.
IMDb TV, Hulu, Tubi. People are making money on that.
IMDb is more curated though, and it's through Amazon, and so there is gatekeepers for that one. But whereas some other ones are a little more accessible. I'm curious in terms of knowing that going in, like it was a small passion project. Did you try to do any like regional screenings where it's your property, you control it, to try and get some of the funds back by doing maybe forewalling a little? Did you try that?
Yeah, I was definitely looking at those, and I can't remember it now because anything before the pandemic is a little bit fuzzy. But there is a thing that like AMC does, that where you can, and this is what Louise did with All About Eve, where you can basically rent the movie theater, and you sell a certain amount of ticket. You have to sell a certain amount of tickets for the movie to go. So if you don't sell those tickets and the movies go, anything you sell beyond what that certain amount of ticket, that movie goes directly to you. So that is an opportunity. But Forever Not Maybe got COVIDed. And I was working with Naomi from Netflix. She was organizing a theatrical release in and around London, that I was going to go with Forever Not Maybe there in October of 2020, but obviously that didn't happen for a million different reasons. And then I had to try to figure out what I wanted to do with it. And I had learned through all the classes that I went to that for a movie the size of mine, with the way that the industry was changing, it would behoove me more to create it, to release it with the idea of community in mind. I didn't really think I was going to make a huge amount of money on it, and that's probably naive. And on my side, I didn't want to have high expectations, because it's a very small movie. We don't have A-list actors, as much as I love them. Like people,
I think though it works for your movie though. You have a hook. Like I said, you made it for your community. your community wanted to see those characters, and I think they
It
appreciate
is a
the filmmaking.
community film. It is not a Netflix film. It is not an Amazon film. It is a community film. So for me, and that's the whole thing about distribution. You have to think about what you want from it. So if you want to make money, then, there are things that you have to do from development before you film to distribution that you have to put in place in order to set your movie up for the highest success possible.
Well, let me say this, because a lot of people like to say, oh, well, you made a drama. And so a lot of people like to say, well, drama is not really a marketable genre. If you do a drama, you need to have a name to sell it. But I kind of think there still should be some discovery in that, Nicole Kidman wasn't always Nicole Kidman. Someone had to give her that first shot, to get the ball rolling. She's in an Australian BMX movie.
The movie called BMX Bandit.
Yes. So, she wasn't always on this wonderful actress pedestal. She had to pay her dues. And so I think there's something to be said for finding talent, cultivating it, and showcasing it so there's room to grow.
No, I 100% agree with that. Of course I want to work with Nicole Kidman. Of course I want to work with Cate Blanchett. However, I'm casting the right people for my script. And Mandala was always Sasha. And we had a bit of a search for Elizabeth, just because it was really difficult to find a French-speaking piano playing.
Yeah, it was a high bar.
Yeah, it was a high bar. It was so specialized in such a small budget that, we had a bunch of people that came through that were great. And then Marie walked in and we were like, oh, she had everything that we wanted. And I didn't care that, she wasn't Nicole Kidman, because it was, it goes back to kind of your goals and things. And we're really fortunate right now to have platforms like Lesflix, because they don't care. They don't care if you have Nicole Kidman in your project. They're just looking for really great Sapphic work.
They care about good content.
They care about good content. They care about number one, they care about the people watching the films, and number one plus, they care about the filmmakers.
I'll say this about Lesflix that I really appreciate, as opposed to some of the other streamers that I've noticed. I appreciate their diversity in content. In storytelling. So I look for that when I'm looking for something to watch. And so I like that they have that those choices.
And that's really, I have been for the past month and a half or two, I've been volunteering with them and just helping her where I can, and community outreach and being the bridge between the filmmakers, because a lot of the people who make films on the platform are already friends of mine. So when I started working or volunteering with them, I was so impressed by the people who are working with them, because they are so passionate about films and finding new films and finding diverse films. And they'll go on YouTube and search and physically reach out to the person who put their movie on YouTube and was like, take this off of YouTube. We have money to give you.
Some of us are get to do filmmaking full time, and other of us are we're weekend filmmakers, because it's a hard process. It's a hard hustle.
Absolutely.
So I want filmmakers to value their films a little more.
Sorry, my dog.
Again, it's a production assistant. He's probably telling you it's dinner time for him, and I know I've kept you a while. I had to turn on my light because I was losing light from outside. So
I'm now in a noir. I think I could be in one of your movies. I think we should hit home what we were trying to get across in this last conversation is, if you're a filmmaker, Lesflix is a place. It's not just a VOD platform. It's a whole ecosystem, and the people who work there, including Naomi, who is the founder and CEO of the company, her priority is helping filmmakers have a place to a voice, a place to put their stuff, and a learning a space for learning how to not only monetize on their stuff, but to really trust in your work and your vision, and just absolute support. And so I'm so grateful that Lesflix exists, and that I now get to help her how I can, because I just think that the platform is so important.
No, I'm glad you're a part of that process. I think it's so important. I'm filming later this weekend to hopefully try and send something your way. A zombie pilot for Dating the Zombie Apocalypse season 2. Hopefully to get it done before Valentine's Day. So
Amazing.
we'll see.
I can't wait.
We'll see. I did have to ask this. So doing the feature film for Forever Not Maybe, getting that push from your friend that it'd be more valuable to do a feature film. Has it been more valuable? Has it opened work up to more things for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so hard because in LA, like you go and have coffee meetings and you have high hopes that you met that one producer that's going to do all that stuff that we were talking about earlier, that they can package it and do all the stuff that we need to do in order to kind of take our film to the next level where we're not producing it ourselves. Someone else is kind of doing all that paperwork and organization stuff that most creative people don't like and aren't very good at, including myself. So what was the question? Forever Not Maybe.
Yeah. How has making your first feature film open up other jobs for you?
It has given me the opportunity to have more of those meetings, because it's really valuable if you have the ability to just complete a feature film. I feel like it's kind of like getting your college degree, where people are looking, if it's a great movie, then you're probably sailing, maybe, but that's not the rule either. But just finishing it and having a product that is cohesive, that can show what you can do in long form, it's so important. And I've definitely used it as a stepping stone since it released. And it's actually I won a couple of awards for it, which I'm really proud of. And all of that stuff really just not only helps you get to the next step, which is very difficult because I'm still trying to do my next feature as well. But really it gives you the confidence to go out and there's not a lot of people in the community or in the spaces that I'm in that are in my position that have been able to make a feature film. So just the fact that I've made it kind of puts me in a different arena than a lot of other people. And I think that is like the most valuable thing of having the confidence to be in the room and to when you're talking to those producers, they're not looking at a first time filmmaker. And I think that's really important because a lot of people, there's when Christine Vachon picked up Kimberly Pierce to do Boys Don't Cry, that was her first film. And Christine Vachon really kind of held her hand through that whole process. And that's just not something that we have anymore because there's so many filmmakers and it's so much easier to make films. And, things are a lot different than they were back whenever that movie was made. I was probably in the early 2000s. But getting it done, that is incredibly important. And getting it done and it being a product that, that is indicative of what you could do if you had full backing. I think that's really important for selling yourself. That and like the data from distribution, the people, how much money you're making, how much return you've got, the amount of people, who your audience is, how many is in your audience, all of that stuff. You're just creating a resume for yourself, telling investors and telling producers, well, this is where I'm at now on my own. How much further can we go together?
I think that's great advice. And I want to end it there for us, but I want to also give you a chance to say where people can find you and support your work.
Yeah, well, number one, I always say go to Lesflix because that is, they actually pay very, very well. So everybody go to Lesflix and watch everything. But also you can see Welcome Home for free. You can see the first 5 episodes for free on Lesflix, on Real Women's Network, and on SVTV and on OML TV. And then the new episodes are exclusive to Lesflix. You can see Forever Not Maybe on Lesflix, on SVTV, and on Real Women's Network. You can see Once Upon a Zipper and August on the City on Real Women's Network and Lesflix. So those are the spaces that you can see us, and then find me on social media because I'm always updating with fun stuff.
That's great. Thank you so much for, chatting with me today.